There's a curious trend among some of Jane Espenson's Buffyverse episodes. They often feature a character, lost or ostracized, trying to figure out who they are in that certain time and place, the downtrodden loser finding their confidence. Jane Espenson only wrote 2 episodes of Angel, Guise Will Be Guise, and the Cordy-centric Room with a View, in which Cordelia, struggling with the idea that her current life and status in LA might be punishment.
For what?
For how I was. For everything that I said in high school, just because I could get away with it.
Later realizes that her alpha-dominant nature could be used as a force for good, that there wasn't only one course.
I'm not a sniveling, whiny little cry, Buffy.
But Guise Will Be Guise might share the most in common with Espenson's own Buffy episode Superstar. Wesley's adoption of Angel's identity for the course of an episode bears some resemblance to Jonathan's magically adopted persona there, where in the case of both, they discover that, when it comes to the most important things, they didn't need the magic or the lie to accomplish them.
Because it's true. What you have is really complicated.
I had some reservations with Guise Will Be Guise on first viewing, but as is so often the case when it comes to these videos, a closer inspection of the episode, especially in consideration of the season arc, made me discover a new and more rich appreciation for what it does.
The greater scheme, the big picture. Nothing really matters. I just can't see favor.
There's a lot worse things out there than such.
Seal doesn't work in spite of evil. Nothing should do. It works with us.
Why is it that I'm not on the floor this time?
Take all that matters is what we do.
The episode opens with a curious focus on Wesley's outfit as the camera pauses just a moment for him to scratch his leg with his foot. It's a subtle emphasis that I particularly like on Wesley's use of what Donna in Parks and Rec called
khakis and button-down shirts. Your basic white people clothes.
Wesley is meandering about the hotel lobby with some paperwork when a man looking for Angel's very particular set of skills comes in.
Are you a creature of the night?
I was a rogue demon hunter, so I know how to handle myself when things get rough.
I mean, I know it's a good fall by Alexis, and it helps set up the journey for his character both in this episode and through to Season 5, but I'm just not a fan of bumbling Wesley. Cordy pops by and is a bit less subtle than the opening camera movement was.
Do you have any clothes a man would wear?
Angel and Gunn are breaking into Wolfram and Hart. Again, the existence of this grate into the sewers feels like an egregious hole in their security now that the company has a vampire making a habit of doing this. Perhaps they have no real intention of winning? Wesley and Cordy interrupt their attempt to head upstairs in a broad comedy bit that says to me, yes, we're hitting the pause button on the dark stuff we've been doing all season. Let's take a break and have some fun together. Angel might be suffering from some chillis interruptus, so the team goes to see Lorne.
You don't have to sing. A break for you, a break for me, and a break for Mr. Manilow.
Okay, if you're sure.
One of my favorite running gags is Angel's barely concealed desire to be a good singer. Lorne recommends Angel see a Swami-type guy to boost his mood. The Tish McGev in question is a bit of a surprise for Angel and us. I like this subversion of expectations. Until I don't. More on that in a minute. Some pushy clients introduce Wesley to play a bit of dress-up. Alexis and David Boreanaz are the same height, but the jacket makes Wesley look short. Love the detail that the costume designer made the Wesley version a couple of sizes too large.
Maybe I'm a little attracted.
The pushy client ends up being a warlock crime boss looking for someone to protect his daughter Virginia. Wesley's Angel ruse introduces a bunch of jokes and hijinks. Meanwhile, initially surprisingly insightful at first, cracks in the Swami's suggestions start showing through. Things get intimate between Virginia and Wes. Maybe this might be one of those full disclosure type of deals. Maybe she should know your real name.
I want to be honest with you. I want to tell you everything. I'm not...
Have points for attempt? We find out the Swami is a murdering fraud sent to keep Angel busy. Wes gets revealed as a Shemp, and it turns out that Virginia is a virgin sacrifice for Daddy's favorite goddess, though there's a problem with the sacrifice.
The sacrifice is impure.
Whoa, that's what impure meant?
If it is a fate of all television to eventually go the 12-episode Breaking Bad-style season arc, it strikes me that episodes like Guise Will Be Guise may eventually cease to exist. Sometimes, and somewhat unfairly, referred to as filler episodes. Within the Buffyverse, I think the TV trope term breather episodes is much more proper. Less necessary in a 12-episode season. If Mutant Enemy did nothing but ratchet up the tension over the course of Angel's 22-episode second season, it's possible that the results would become unbalanced unbearable, and perhaps eventually unwatchable. These lighter upbeats before the downs stand out even more to me in the Buffyverse that is such a tremendous mashup of comedy, drama, fantasy, and sometimes science fiction. Go fish before becoming, bad eggs before surprise and innocence.
I see your yeah and raise you a yeah.
Most famous, of course, is probably I Was Made to Love You in Buffy Season 5. Because the first season of Angel was so episodic anyway, Guys Will Be Guys here in Season 2 feels like the first real breather episode we've hit in the series, and makes me realize that for some reason, I struggle a bit with these types of episodes on Angel, and I don't with Buffy. Guys Will Be Guys is very entertaining. Tons of fun jokes, but a lot of it feels pretty...
Oh, hot. Cold. Oh, it burns. Oh. Not a eunuch.
broad. The entire opening scene in the elevator comes off like an Abbott and Costello quartet trying to decide whether or not to ride the elevator up and commence murder. Don't get me wrong. That isn't shade. I loves me some Abbott and Costello. But the term too broad implies a little universe or character breaking. I'm not sure exactly why these episodes feel more broad to me on Angel than they do on Buffy, except for the fact that from the first episode, Angel the series was always reaching for a darker tone. Angel's show is much more murdery, abusey, seeking redemption-y than Buffy's is. Buffy's first season established it as a campy, quippy, funny teen show that occasionally had to and did earn its dark drama. Angel is a dark drama that sometimes needs to earn its comedic departures. An example of this kind of material working successfully that springs to mind is David's dance sequence from She, the use of which was justified by it being a fantasy in Angel's head of how an invitation to dance might have gone, or any of the moments where he's playing a role while detectiving on the Sneaky Sneak.
Herb Saunders, Baltimore.
I also have mixed feelings about the episode Swami B story. I mentioned earlier that I loved the subversion of the Swami being character actor Art LaFleur. That is a lot of fun. Whatever we or Angel were expecting, it wasn't this. Angel's assertions and biases about the whole world being challenged immediately upon the two of them meeting. From there, Tish makes incisive observation upon incisive observation. They have some very interesting conversations, including ones that get at some of the silly artifice of the design of Angel's character.
Thought we were going to talk about my problems.
That car is your problem, pal.
These people don't know anything about vampires. What they are, how they live, how they dress.
I've also not bothered hiding my bias for the use of therapy and storytelling. For some reason, I always find it kind of fun.
I mean, everyone has problems. Everybody has demons, right?
See, he meant demons metaphorically, but she has literal demons, get it? But the episode's eventual turn of this guy just being some hired muscle who is there to occupy and keep Angel busy for the weekend negates the cute opening subversion and ends up validating the idea that Art LaFleur as Tish McGev should have been fishy to Angel and undermines or negates all of that fun character play that was happening between them the whole episode. Angel now believes that nothing this guy said in this episode should be taken seriously, and because it happened only between Angel and he, it never does. The scenes between them end up not meaning anything. The Art McGev speaking truth does fit with one of the mutant enemy staples of giving the villains truth to speak. Think Parker's seductive use of the philosophy of choice in The Harsh Light of Day, or the mayor's speech in Graduation Day, but in all of those examples there was a major difference. Take, for example, the mayor's relationship advice to Angel in the episode Choices.
You're not my elder. I got a lot of years on you.
Yeah, and that's just one of the things you're going to have to deal with. You're immortal. She's not. And let's forget the fact that any moment of true happiness will turn you evil.
Sure, the mayor's motivation isn't altruistic. He's just trying to undermine Scooby cohesion, but all of the things he's saying here are actually true, and his speech influences Angel to break up with Buffy in the next episode. What he says influences the story and the actions of the other characters. Even more confusing is that the LaFleurian twist strikes me as unnecessary, something that creates more problems than it solves. So, a competing crime boss wants to distract Angel to keep him on his spa retreat for as long as possible. But then, why kill the actual Swami? Wouldn't Angel have been far more likely to spend extended time there with the actual Swami, who actually had insights to offer and exercises to put Angel through. It's not clear what purpose replacing him served. And whatever the crime boss is paying Art LaFleur, it is not enough. For a bit of murdering muscle, he actually has shockingly good observations to make about Angel, and even bests Angel at sticky, fighty punch stick fight time, whatever this is. Still, the more I thought about it, the more I felt like the Swami situation does work as another example of a pattern Angel has been grappling with pretty much since Blind Date in Season 1. His attempts to do the right thing in all good faith, to follow some kind of good guy moral code and stay in the light, being constantly undermined by the fact that the bad guys are not bound by those same binary restrictions. There is nothing but gray around Angel, especially this season. From the demon he killed in Judgment actually being a hero, to the crowd of humans that turned on him when he tried to help Judy, to Kate, a woman he saved on more than one occasion and an advocate for the lawful and just, hating him, to this season's recurring, most emotionally insightful and compassionate character being an actual green-skinned demon in Lorne. And Angel takes Lorne's advice and looks inward in good faith.
Well, maybe my persona is a little affected.
Only once again to be undermined by forces not subject to the same constraints as he.
It's their system, and it's one that works. It's pure. I remember what that was like. Sometimes I miss that clarity.
This is a constant, incoming, and relentless tide Angel is going to face. An important emerging pattern presenting in the season that, might be building to something. Seeing it repeating again in this one gave me a richer appreciation for the episode's B story beyond just wishing that the Tishmagev were real and to see some development in Angel's character. Development will come. The rest of the episode is a more uncomplicated good time. I love Alexis in this, and his turn as Angel has lots of great comedic bits.
Don't worry, boys, I don't kill humans. Unless I'm angry.
Huh. That's actually the opposite of the way Angel's curse works, and I never realized that Angel is reverse Hulk until he said this line. I also think Wesley's relationship with Virginia is hilariously awesome. Virginia is a virgin sacrifice whose life Wesley enters into thinking he's protecting her, and while pretending to be something he isn't. And after they sleep together...
Virginia, I want to be honest with you. I want to tell you everything.
Maybe we should.
I'm not...
Wesley is revealed to not be the person Virginia thought he was. Jane Espenson didn't stop short at having Wesley spend an episode pretending to be Angel, but actually seeded part of the Bangel arc into the episode. After mentioning last season that she has been in the midst of a noir marathon, Cordy once again shows a surprisingly deep knowledge of film history that dates all the way back to her telling Xander,
You're the Zeppo. Look it up. It's like they don't even know you're a Shemp.
Shemp Howard filled in for his brother Curly in the Stooges shorts after Curly had a heart attack, and Shemp was more of a laid-back dimwit by comparison. But the episode is a very important step in one of my favorite characters in the Buffyverse, and that is Wesley. I've made a running observation of the moments featuring Wesley's competency. Skilled with a pistol and with a deep knowledge of demonology and lore, Wesley's biggest obstacle is just Wesley.
I'm a fraud.
The season's episode Untouched put a very specific spotlight on the topic of abuse, but there has always been an undercurrent of it in the series. It's played for humor when Tish LaFleur suggests Angel find a blonde and break her heart to get over feelings about Darla, but let's not forget how unfunny that was when it actually happened. The joke makes explicit the repeating pattern in Angel's relationships that I described as both Oedipal and abusive in the Dear Boy video. Abuse is about power and control. Darla always spoke to Angelus about relationships through a lens of power and dominance. Angelus was not a partner. He was hers.
And my boy is still in there and he wants out.
In The Prodigal, Liam felt dominated by his father and unworthy. And even as Angelus stood over his father's corpse, Darla made sure to tell him that he had not won anything. No freedom, no self-actualization, no control.
But his defeat of you will last lifetimes. The same love will infect our hearts, even if they no longer beat.
Love.
Is this the work of love?
After his turn, Angelus attempts to exert the same power and control over Buffy that had been used on him.
You know what the worst part was, huh? Pretending that I loved you.
It doesn't work anymore.
Angel finally breaks his pattern of relationships and leaves Sunnydale, but we can see it troubling him in the similarities of some of his chosen clients. One of the potential horrors of abuse is in its ability to brainwash and turn its target into their own abuser. Through a process of internalizing what was done to them, valuing their self-worth against that nightmare, and seeking out the same results again and again. We saw this with Debbie, betraying Buffy to save her boyfriend Pete, who had assaulted her. Shades of it from Buffy identifying with the boy who murdered his teacher and killed himself in I Only Have Eyes for You. And of course, with Bethany in Untouched.
You can do stuff to me and, we'll have some fun.
While much of his backstory is still obscured at this point, Wesley shows some symptoms of a similar history. In I've Got You Under My Skin, Wesley fends off the demon child's attempt to use his father against him.
Nothing's gonna make him proud of you.
How many crosses am I holding up? Omnis spiritus immundi in nomine Dei.
But while those memories of his father's dominance and control over him are no longer as powerful, the self-hatred and punishment that Wesley is capable of foisting upon himself is, such that when the demon tries again, he doesn't speak with his father's voice, he speaks with Wesley's.
All those hours locked up under the stairs and you still want good enough. Not good enough for Daddy, not good enough for the council.
Wesley donning the angel cape and stepping into the role of hero is such a beautiful and interesting way of having him face his inner demons for an episode. He may believe that he himself is an incapable fraud, but he does not think that about Angel. Angel is someone he looks at with admiration and respect.
You walk a fine line, Angel. I don't envy you.
Angel, it wasn't for her.
I know.
And so, for his own self-preservation, and for Virginia's, a woman with some pretty serious father issues of her own, Wesley tries to be everything he believes Angel is. And the biggest lesson for him is that occasionally he succeeds.
You were amazing.
I was a bit.
In fact, if it weren't for the opposing crime boss's idiotic Tish LaFleur plan, Wesley might not have actually been found out. In the past few years, the term imposter syndrome has gained quite a bit of traction in the cultural vernacular, and that is probably because it is so widespread. It's difficult for this idea not to feel like a treacly pablum sandwich when said bluntly, but knowing your own worth can be an enormous challenge over the course of a lifetime. But that is one of the great values of grounding those ideas in fiction, and is, in some ways, one of the things that Buffyverse stories are most about. In the video for Somnambulist, I mentioned our tendency to surround ourselves with people who are mirrors of who we are.
I don't have a reflection, so...
Sure you do.
I do?
You're reflected in the people around you.
In the episode's final standoff, Angel is trapped between two reflections of himself, his ugly past and Kate, his potential just future. And in Untouched, Bethany, who has seen nothing but ugly things reflected in the world around her, finds her way to Angel. Their conversation at the episode's halfway point in some ways lays the groundwork for Wesley in Guise Will Be Guise.
I'm really embarrassed. All these horrible things have happened, been done to me. Guys have died. And I'm freaking because I'm so embarrassed. People are pathetic.
Because she was mocking her own embarrassment, we can read that when she says people, what she really means is she feels pathetic. But Angel reflects something different.
I like them. The time I've lived, I've seen some horrors, some scary behavior. But I see people try. I see them try to be better.
I'd like that. See people the way you do.
What she's asking for, what she's wishing for, is the ability to see herself the way Angel can see her. And here, in this episode, Wesley steps into the shoes of the man he sees Angel to be, and in doing so, finds himself. There are a lot of us who can give love freely, except to ourselves, because of the catalog of memories we keep in our heads that we've interpreted mean something awful about us. But while the memories may be true, there is no truth in the interpretation. There is just what you believe, and then what you choose to do after.